Hi, it's Steve with Coin Stuff I Like, bringing you a Ike Stuff I Like video. This time about one of my favorite clad Ike double dies, the 1972 D Ike designated Ike variety 2D-301, which is the traditional 1-1 double die, obverse one, double die, reverse one. It's a one that if you're an eye collector, you want to get this one, because it is of the clads, it is one of the top ones to collect. By the way, if I sound nasally, it's because I'm getting over virus, and pardon me, but I'll carry on and as best I can with this video. I may pause for a sip of water here and there, but let me go into this particular variety and the cool story it has behind it. It's not just about a 1-1. So let's take a look. The key to the 301 series, the DIVa 301 series, and the 101 is that reverse, the double die reverse. Actually, there's some suggestion in a couple of spots, like here, of tripling, and a couple of this can show some tripling in some in early die state, very early die state. So it is a true doubled die. It's not an upline doubled die from a working hub doubling. This one has some evidence of tripling, and it's pretty. It's a moderate spread. It's pretty big for an Ike clad series in terms of spread. So you could see notching, doubling across all of United and States. You can see the notching in all those different locations. All the stars are doubled at least. And this is America continuing over from United States. So you can see some nice notching in here all the way across, the doubling. It goes pretty much around the coin. This has some suggestion of tripling right here as well. So a true doubled die obverse, actually with tripling. So this one goes all the way around. I mean, pretty much every device on that reverse is doubled. The Earth is a key pickup point when you're looking for these. Just look at the islands. Look at the big split there, here, even up in here. You can see evidence of doubling. Also, E pluribus unum. The dots even have notching on E pluribus unum. At least this one on the left hand side of the coin. So look at these. They're fabulous. It's not hard to cherry pick this. You might need a 5 times loop. You may not be able to pick it up naked eye, but you might. But a 5 times loop will do the trick. And then a 10-time loop will allow you to pick up some of the key die markers besides just the doubling. Now that's the images that I'm going to show of this particular doubling, but you go follow around. $1 has notching in it. They're on the craters on Earth. There's doubling. There's FG initials that are doubled. The tips of the wing tips on the eagle's right, your left looking at the coin, they have notching. So it goes all the way around. Now I mentioned the die markers that help identify this die. This is important because of what I'm going to get to in just a little bit. So the reverse die markers, they'll all show up in early die state. As you move on to middle die state, they're all there. later dye state, some of them start fading. This one is one of the last to fade. It's this little dye scratch that looks like a shooting star right here. There's a dye scratch here on the earth that tends to fade by middle to late middle dye stage. This little dye gouge below the L, right below the L, right there, you'll see that all except in the very late dye stages. So these are consistent markers that allow you to identify this dye besides the doubling to identify this dye. That's three of them right there. Here's two more. There's a little dye scratch or dye gouge below the A in states, and there's a couple of dye scratches above the D and the O. These again will stick around to late dye stage and start to fade. Well, they're fading all the way along, but by late dye stage and very late dye stage, it'd be harder to pick them up. Although I picked up remnants of this on very late dye stages. So, oh, by the way, while on this image, look at that. Look at the notching in the L. It's just a matter of how the light captures it. It's hard to photograph all the notching, all the doubling with one single image and one single light direction. But there you go. And it's hard to see here because of the shadowing, but there's doubling down there as well. So there are 5 of them. I'm going to get to the 6th one in just a little bit. But these all are present from very early dye stage, and most of them will fade out by very late dye stage. A couple of them, as I mentioned here, with the dye gouge dot and that shooting star little dye scratch there. I think that's star number 5, but it's just above the earth, as you can see. Those will stick around quite a bit longer. You can see remnants of them. Now, before I get to that 6, let me go over the cross references for the 1-1. Now, Wexler, in the authoritative guide on Eisenhower dollars, a book that's published many years ago, listed the WDDR001, WDDO001. If you go to Wexler's site, Wexler's double dyes, it's not listed there anymore. And I suspect the reason why is the person that's running the site has delisted it, thinking that it might be a hub doubled pairing, dye marriage. It is not. So that is a bunch of BS and should have not have been just delisted off of that site. So enough on that. Wiles in Variety Vista lists DDR001 that can be paired with DDO001. Now, let's dive a little bit deeper into that. Wiles lists 5 dye stages for the DDR, the double dye reverse, and the A and B stages cover the early dye state to middle dye state, maybe even to late middle dye state. A and B cover that. And then as the stages progress into late middle dye state to very late dye state, he talks about an emerging, evolving dye crack on the reverse, which I'm going to show you in a moment. It's down by the eagle's talons and right wingtips. And at that point in time, there's a new dye marriage. So this was in early dye state. It was the reverses paired to the first obverse. And at about the time these dye cracks started appearing, it was repaired to a new obverse, which is the double dye verse 001. All right. Also cross-reference to Calansis, the Ike dollar double dye group. The reverse is reverse 3 in Clance's catalog. And he identifies two obverses, which is consistent with Wiles. Wechsler didn't pick up on that. Wiles did, Clance's did. Actually, Clance's was the first to describe two dimarriages for that double direverse. And Wiles picked up on it. Maybe they communicated, I'm not sure. Also, he was the first to describe tripling on the second obverse. So I've already talked about the appearance of some areas where you see a pickup, a little tripling on the reverse in early die stages. The obverse is tripled when it is paired to the second obverse as well. So a true double diverse, double direverse when it gets to that second obverse pairing. The Ike group, of which I'm a member, listed as designated Ike variety 2D, which stands for 72D, dash 301. Point 1 is the first reverse, and point 2 is the second reverse, meaning the double die reverse ties them together in that 301 number, but then we separate it into 1 and 2, or point 1, point 2 for the first reverse, second reverse. All right, so with that aside, let's get to that sixth reverse die marker. And that sixth reverse die marker are the die cracks that Wiles talks about, where when you start picking up the die cracks at the talons, notice the die crack right here by the knuckle, and it goes out to the upper left, northwest, and southeast from that knuckle. When you start seeing that, when those die cracks, there's also die crack on their wingtips here. When you start seeing those, that's when they changed over to the new obverse, the second obverse. So if you have that double die reverse, it has the markers, the 5 other ones, or most of them, depending on die state. Then you start picking up this one, that picks up stuff in the late middle die state and later. So late middle die state, late die state, very late die state. So when you have these, you've got the true 1-1. You got that second obverse pairing. So that's a key thing to look for. Now, let's talk about those obverses. So when early on, like I said, and what Wiles says, in very early die state, early die state, middle die state, maybe even till late middle die state. On the reverse, you see all the doubling and the other 5 markers, but you don't see any die cracks in the talon right here by the knuckle, or by this tip, or by this tip, wingtip. You don't see those. And that obverse, that's the first obverse paired to this glorious reverse, is just a doubled one. And if you look around, the motto is not that, there's no real evidence of doubling there. If you look up at Liberty, in the lower right of the vertical bar of the R, the lower right has a little small spread notch that you need 10 time loops to see that. So it's only doubled. It's probably hub doubled, not a true double die. But that reverse, which is paired to this one, that is a true double die. It has some evidence of tripling. So this one, as Wiles suggested, runs from this pairing, this die marriage, runs from very early die state to middle die state, which if you go by Del Romine's, he postulated that to get to middle die state, it's only about 10 to 15% of the production of that die, the first 10 to 15%. So maybe Wiles said late middle die state, so maybe 12%. who knows, somewhere in that 10 to 15%, which is only about 18,000 coins. Why do I know that, or why do I suggest that? It's because the average die life, and this is from mint data, mint records, the average die life was 120,000 coins from the reverse die. So 10% of that is about 18,000. 15% is about 18,000. So, but there are other markers for that first pairing on the obverse. One is the doubling. You're not going to see the tripling that you see on the second obverse. There is a slightly different mint mark placement. This one's rather high. I'm going to show you side by side later on. But also, this one's key. All of the first pairing, the obverse has this little die scratch or die gouge just to the left of the FG. This is on the base of the bust right here. All of them have it. It's a very consistent. It doesn't get washed away. So that if you have a double dive reverse DDR001 and you flip it over and you're not seeing a whole lot of doubling, but you do see this, that's the first obverse. All right, very easy to identify that. Now, remember, after the die cracks start appearing, this is a bigger die crack here, but the first place a die crack appears is right around this knuckle right here, right in there. On the right, the talon on your left, the eagle's right, right in there, this a little die crack starts to appear. So right about when that appears, that's when they switched over to the second obverse, and this obverse is tripled at the very least. This one shows actually quadrupling. There's a 1, 2 that we saw in the first one. That's the hub, but then it was doubled again in the creation of the working die. And so you have 1, 2, and then a tiny 3, 4. So this one here, because it runs from late middle die state to very late die state, the reverse, that's about the last 85%, according to Romines, maybe 75 to 85% of, again, 120,000 was the average die life of the reverse. So that's about 102,000 of these that may have been produced with that second reverse, and realize that the very late die states, it's very mushy and not really real collector quality for the most part. And you're going to have some that are lost, melted, destroyed, damaged, etc., etc. So it's 102,000 that are likely minted around there, but there's not that many remaining. All right. So let's look at that second obverse, which is Wexler's double dive verse 001. Again, not on the website, it's in the book, the older book. Wiles Variety Vista double dive verse 001. Clancis IDDO, DDO 5B, the second reverse, and the Ike Group's 2D-301.2, meaning the second reverse. Again, that one has quadrupling, at least tripling, that you can see even into the late die stage, and very late die stage you can identify tripling. In earlier die states you can actually see the quadrupling. The B in Liberty is pretty easy to pick up that doubling, that notching down here at the tail of the B. And if you look at the motto, there's notching. It's photographing these is a matter of getting the light right. So there's notching here, here, here. There's a furrow here, here. There's a furrow down here, which doesn't show well in the shadow here, but you can see the furrow here, the notching and the furrow on the W. You can see it in the E as well, although not with this image that great. I'm going to get to trust, but you can already start to see notching here, notching there, notching here. All right, so the motto is entirely, it's doubled or tripled. Now, here's a better look at trust and even in God we, the bottom parts. Notice tripling there. 1, 2, 3. Tripling there. It's faint, so you can see it in the early die states, but it fades away and it just appears as doubling in the late die state. But you still have the markers. It's the same die. It's just going through, die wear through the die states. All right. There's a good pickup of the notching here and the furrow here and the furrow here on the D. So even some tripling over here that you can pick up. So there is the second obverse, the double die obverse 001, completing the 1-1 with that double die reverse. Secondary die markers would be mint mark placement. Now this one here is the first obverse, and this is the second obverse. Very, very close. Very, very close. There's very subtle differences. This one here is a little bit lower than this one. The first obverse is a little bit higher mint mark placement. Second one is a little bit lower. So you're not going to necessarily take pictures and draw lines, but there are other key markers that stick around until very late die state. And those markers are these die scratches or die gouges to the right of the two, to the left of the two, going from southeast to northwest, above the 7, right here, above the 9. This one's shooting off the 7. Now this one off the T, you lose that pretty early, but this one and this one here, between GORU and this one off the S, those stick around for quite a while into the first part of very late die stage. So these are very good markers that allow you to, again, get secondary identification of that obverse, of that second obverse. But remember, the second obverse was also, they had those die cracks on the reverse. I'm going to show you a little bit more of that in just a minute. Now, for this video, I actually looked at 92 coins that had that double die reverse. That double die reverse 001. They're not all mine. Most of them are, but I have a large number that were loaned to me by another top Ike collector for inspection. And basically what I found is that of those 92, 9 of them had the first obverse paired to that double die reverse. So very early die state to early die state, 9 of them, 5 of them are slab, 4 raw. And then of that 92, 83 were that second die pairing with that double die obverse 001, completing the 1-1. All right, so this is consistent with Romine's estimation of the production of a die going through its various die states. And Romine's said by the end of middle die state, you're run through about maybe 12 to 15% of the die's production. And this is quite consistent with that. So let's look at it. Now, this one here, you may be going, okay, of the slabs, what's the top pop? Of the ones I examined, of the 92 that I examined, 5 were slabbed with this first reverse. This one is mine, MS66 with a CAC green beam. This one is also in my PCGS set registry of complete clad Ikes that have CAC stickers. And that's the #1 registry, has been for 5 years now, the #1 registry. Someone's going to knock me off eventually, but right now it still resides at number 1, and this one sits in that set. Um, if you go to the CAC population report, 72 are stickered at 66. None are graded by CACG at 66. 7 are stickered at 67. 1 is graded at 67. So this coin is pretty uncommon from a grading standpoint. It's one of 72, a pop of 72, and only 8 higher. And I'm pretty certain that none of those 8 are a 1-1 or a double die reverse 1 as this is. Along the same lines of the slabbed, third-party graded slab, double die reverse 1, double die reverse 02, the 301.1, the 18 that were slabbed, again, top pop 66, again, this one is mine. Same figure, so 72 graded with stickers at 66 and 8 higher. Pardon me. This one actually looks a little bit better. It really should be in my number 1 set, but it doesn't really make a difference. It's the same score for a 66 with a crack sticker. But this one is a pretty coin. Very pretty. Both of them have a little bit of gold toning to them. Very nice. I'm glad to have them in my collection. I'm not sure if there's any 67s out there that are not CAC stickered in any holder. There may be. As far as I know, there is not, though. So these are top pops. So let's go to the 9 that I looked at, both slabbed and raw, that fell into that double die reverse with the first obverse, that did not have the double die obverse 001. So of those 9, 8 of them had no cracks. So they're very early die state to early die state. No cracks here at the knuckle or at the tip or at this tip. Nothing. It's very early die state or early die state. One of them had a small emerging die crack here. Did not have it here. Did not have it here over the wingtips. Only a small in between the knuckles right here. You can see it. So that means, what does that mean? That means that right about the time when the reverse was getting into late middle die state and started evolving this crack, that's when they switched the obverse die pairing. Why? Was it purely because of this? I doubt it, but it happened. Regardless, I'm not going to even conjecture why. But once we get to, once you start seeing this die crack, that means they started switching over. Like I said, only 1 of 9 of the ones that have that double die, has the first obverse, only 1 of 9 has a die crack. So it's not common. So, like I said, when you start seeing the die cracks back there, that's when you have the pairing with the true 1-1, with that second obverse, with that triple or quadruple die obverse. So when I looked at the 83 of those, of the 1-1s, 19 of them had early stage cracks, meaning you saw cracks here, and you may see a little die crack here, but you haven't seen anything here. Now, that's not a die crack. See, doubling in the wingtip, doubling wingtip, doubling wingtip, doubling wingtip. You could also see some of the doubling there and there. That's part of the doubling process. The crack actually comes out between the branch tip and that little notch there. So the crack actually comes here. So this would be considered early stage die cracks where you're seeing that and maybe this one. You can even make a case that when you start seeing this die crack extending below the tip, that's stage B die cracks, and the only this one here is a stage A. I'm not going to make that distinction for this video. Um, and then there's the late stage. That's where you see, oh yeah, there's a die crack that started here by the knuckle and extends all the way down here and extends all the way up here. It can't go all the way to this tip. This one here extends all the way down into there, almost touching the moon. This one here is the key one. This one, all of a sudden, that one erupts, and that signals late stage die cracks, and it will extend all the way into that first crater and to the tip of that, the far tip of that crater. So you'll see it running all the way down into there. And so this coincides with Del Romine's production of very late die state. So he says about 60 to 70%, 60 to 75% are in very late die state die production of the total coinage, and this aligns pretty well. So you'll again once you start seeing the cracks, it has that more than likely. When you see this one for sure, then it has that second obverse. When you see this it definitely has a second obverse. And now just look at the die flow lines. Now you're starting to lose some of those secondary die identifiers, markers, and the doubling is getting mushy too. So, if you're really collecting, you want to collect a good 1-1. You want to get one of these that are more, that 23%, that the first 23% of that, once they switched in and started with that second obverse, that's what you want if you want to collect. Now, for me, I want this one too, because I like that die crack extending all the way to the moon. But for collecting, if you wanted to collect one, you're going to get the true 1-1 that has a second pairing, that triple die obverse. It has this double die reverse with the early stage die cracks. That means you're getting a relatively early die state, middle die state, late middle die state version, as opposed to very late die state. All right, so that's the background. So again, if you're collecting, if you're an Ike collector, you want to get the double die reverse paired to the double die obverse. It has the tripling. It has those markers. Here's one of the markers right there. And you want to get it with the die cracks on the reverse very early. So you're getting a good, as early as possible, die state example. So that's what you want to collect. Now, if you're the next level Ike collector, you're going to say, I want one of those. And those are hard. Remember, only 10% of the ones of the double die reverses, only 10% have that first obverse. So this is collectible on that basis. And then if you're like really the total Ike nerd like I am, you want that one with the late stage die crack of that second wingtip extending all the way down into the crater. Not because the examples of the doubling is great, but because it has that crack. So, but this is where you want to start. Now, if you're getting these, right now realize they're not listed in Cherry Picker's Guide. So third-party grading services are not attributing these other than NX. NX will attribute a Wiles DDR001, DDO001 if you have it. So you can get them attributed by NX, but NGC, PCGS, CACG, they're not attributing them because they're not in the Cherry Picker's Guide. And I think this one, because of how the story it tells, the the quality of the doubling on both the obverse and the reverse, or just the reverse in an early die state with that 301.1. This both die marriage 1 and die marriage 2, this belongs in the next cherry picker's guide. So please, please, if you're watching, let's try to get this one in the next cherry picker's guide. It really should be. So, and if it gets there, then it will start showing up in registry listings, and that'll drive the price up a bit. But as it is right now, if I have a let's say that's 66 in either one of these, it's about a $400 premium over the same grade price guide, or same grade price of a plain Jane 72D. When you have this, it adds about a $400. Now, if it's in, down there in, MS 61, 62, AU 58, it's maybe, $20 to $50 premium, in my opinion. But you're going to have to find an Ike collector that really is wanting those because it's not in the cherry picker's guide yet. People don't need them for the registry. So that said, it's still a great coin. It's one of the best of the clad Ike double dies. So thank you for watching. Thank you for putting up with my nasally voice and post-viral sounding Steve. And remember, buy stuff you like, but be smart about what you buy. We'll catch you next time.